Dabdoub, the local director of the Council of American-Islam Relations, and Brian Jaffe, the director of the Jewish Community Relations Commission. Let's turn, if we can, to a little bit longer view. The United States there'll be a transition in administrations. First off, Karen, what do you expect from the new administration? Either from the campaign or what you've heard since?
Well, it's hard to know exactly, but what I expect as an American citizen from my new president is that he will take a long and hard look at the situation, a historical look at the situation, and institute policies that will bring some balance to U.S. Policies towards Israel and towards Palestine, and will be an honest broker for peace in the region, and not just take one side, which is what the current administration has pretty much done, is just take one side and had pretty much of a hands-off approach. So I would expect that to change. Brian, what about you?
Support for Israel and support for peace is broad and bipartisan for good reason. It's not just this president, it's the president-elect. It's not just the administration, it's Congress. It's both parties in Congress. So I expect that the new president is going to support a strong U.S.-Israel relationship because he knows that the strength of that relationship is going to help the Israelis have the confidence to make the kinds of concessions they would need in order to find a resolution a peaceful resolution to the conflict. So I'm hoping that the president will continue the United States' role as a broker in this conflict, but really help create the conditions for Israelis and Palestinians to come together to make peace. And part of that means weakening Hamas.
Do you see any significant change? And I asked that question in the context of the thesis that one of the reasons Israel undertook this action at this time was because the Bush administration was still in power and they kind of knew what was going to happen there, and they're not so sure what's going to happen with the Obama administration.
Well, I think two things. I think Israel took this action at this time because Hamas announced that it had no intention of extending the ceasefire, and as the ceasefire came to a close, hundreds more rockets fell on civilians in southern Israel. With respect to the president-elect, he was in Sderot, one of those towns, last summer, and he said, and we've been reading this quote in the news, he said, if rockets were coming into my house where my two daughters sleep at night, I'd do everything I can to stop them, and I would expect that Israelis would do the same thing.
Brian mentioned before that his hope was that the United States could act as that fair broker between the sides. I mean, the reality is, in that situation, do the Arab, Palestinian, Islamic peoples see the United States as a fair broker at this point?
Well, the Palestinians are both Christian and Muslim. Let's not forget the Christian portion of the population as well. Unfortunately, no, that's not been their experience. Their experience has been that the United States, for many administrations, has taken the side of Israel almost exclusively, has helped to perpetuate the myths that, Palestinians are not honest in their desire for peace and not working for peace, and have helped to cover up the fact that, in many times, and in this case it was actually Israel that broke the ceasefire way back in November many times before it quote-unquote expired or the rockets started again.
Broke it before the rockets, are you saying?
Yes.
By what?
Yes, by attacking Gaza several times, by bombing the tunnels, which also bring through food and medicines and things to help the people of Gaza survive. But by going in, invading Gaza, capturing people, they've killed several people, and this was all during November. So
I'm aware
well
of time,
before.
and I got a feeling we don't have an agreement on that. So, but I want to go to the one last area. Governments are one thing. Brian, what can individuals do? Individual Americans who don't want to just take a side here. What can individual Americans do here?
Look, I think it's important for individual Americans to really learn about the history and the context of this conflict and to support efforts to find reconciliation. I think individual Americans need a framework. I think that the Middle East is divided right now between those who want coexistence and those who want to see the end of Israel. And those who want to see the end of Israel include Hamas and Hezbollah and Syria and Iran. Those who want to see coexistence include Egypt and Jordan.
Would you have something you'd recommend people read?
I think that they can look. They can read Haaretz and the Jerusalem Post, the Israeli press. There's any number of American outlets that provide excellent information. There's a lot.
Karen, what about individuals? What would you recommend that Americans do?
Actually, I would recommend pretty much the same thing, that they read up on the context, the history, learn about how the Palestinian people were dispossessed of their land and their homes in 1948. And the people, in Gaza are, many of them, refugees from places that are now called Ashdod and Ascalon and those kinds of places. So, read, for instance, The Ethnic Cleansing of Palestine by Ilan Pape, who's an Israeli. Read Haaretz. They report a lot more on what's going on in Israel than even American newspapers dare to do, including the controversies and things like that. Go to Al Jazeera English. Read The Independent out of the UK. Those are all places that people can go for varying points of view.
And I think in our talking beforehand, is your organization trying to put together something in the community too? And there's a lot of different discussion groups and whatever, and we're almost out of time. But is there something coming?
Well, as I said, we're working on getting out letters. There's going to be ongoing demonstrations contacting our elected representatives.
And I know your organization sponsors all sorts of things.
Right.
For more information, you might want to check out the websites of both these organizations. JCRC is www.jewishcincinnati.org. The National CAIR website is www.CAIR.com. And for the local dialogue initiative, if it develops, the best place is to monitor the website of the Inter-Community Peace and Justice.
Justice and Peace Center.
Justice and Peace Center. They changed their names. www.ijpc-cincinnati.org. Thank you very much for being here this morning. I really appreciate both of you sitting down and talking.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. I hope that by the time this program airs, a ceasefire has already been agreed to in southern Israel and Gaza. Please join us again next week, and have a good week. Thank you.